Constructive Voices, the podcast for the construction people, with news, views, and expert interviews.
Hello, I'm Steve Randall. Welcome to another episode of Constructive Voices as we head towards the end of October in a year where the cost of materials has been one of the big factors. And we've got a great guest lined up for you today. He's Aaron Henderson.
I think the better job that we do planning projects in advance and understanding, the material, the timeline, the labor that's going to be required for it, will make a really big difference there. And, I think as we look at sustainability, obviously the less waste that we have, the better. And the more economical we can make these projects, the more that can be invested back into to things like net zero and some of those areas as well.
Aaron's from a cloud-based software company called Stack, which aims to keep a lid on construction costs. He'll also be sharing his insights into the construction industry in the US and particularly in his hometown of Nashville. And as usual, Peter Finn, Pete the Builder, is with me too. We'll chat in just a moment.
Constructive Voices media partner in Ireland and the United Kingdom is Construction Industry News. Since 2002, Construction Industry News has been focused on the very latest projects and developments within the UK and Ireland.
So, Pete, once again, we're back and another episode of Constructive Voices. The year is flying by. We're rattling towards Christmas. Scary, isn't it? Have you got the Christmas decorations up yet, Pete?
No, not quite the Christmas decorations, but the Halloween ones are definitely well and truly being spoken about. So, yeah, the year is flying by. Everybody's busy. I'm currently on site. I'm doing some work in a gym, so you may hear some background noise there with some ladies and gentlemen out there pumping the iron.
Yeah, well, let's just clarify. When you say you're doing some work in the gym, does that mean you're doing some work on your body or you're doing some construction work? Just so people know.
A bit of both. It is a gym that I do frequent, but I'm here on business at this moment in time. I'm checking out a bit of roof work. So, but it's a very active gym, and there's lads in the background there getting their workout done. So we've a very good guest on today.
We have, yeah, and he's a guy who's, for full disclosure here, we spent about the first 10 minutes before we started actually recording the interview talking about music because he's based in Nashville, Tennessee, which of course is one of those iconic locations. Aaron Henderson is from Stack CT, and their whole focus is software to help with estimating, cost planning, all of that side of things. It's cloud-based software, and it's really about how the construction industry can use technology, and this is something we talk about a lot, Pete, use technology just to make the whole process more efficient, streamlined, save time, save money. And I know this is clearly a big thing for you and everybody else in the construction industry, especially with the cost of everything at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. It's always good to get perspectives from different areas in the world to see, are we all facing the same challenges, or is there different challenges in different regions? Cost of construction and the challenges related to that are paramount to pretty much everyone that I know in construction. And Aaron delves into that, and he does give us some insight into how that is happening in their region also, in terms of the cost of construction has gone up, and then labour shortages are definitely an issue as well.
Okay, Pete, well, I'll let you go and do some bicep curls, and we'll come back and talk after the interview.
Aaron Henderson, I'm with a company called Stack Construction Technologies, based out of Cincinnati in the United States. And I'm a product marketing manager. So I am essentially kind of the voice of the industry, I guess, as it regards our products and services and what we deliver. So we are a pre-construction technology, originated as a pre-construction technology focused on the trades. So we do everything from takeoff and estimating to proposals for contractors. That said, we continue to grow the portfolio of products. So we're moving more and more aggressively into some project management and financials and some of that as well.
Great. Well, welcome to Constructive Voices. So Stack CT is headquartered in Cincinnati. You, though, are based in Nashville, aren't you? And what a legendary, iconic part of the world that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Nashville's a great town. I've been fortunate to be here, and I work remote with Stack. But yeah, it's a great town. And actually, interestingly enough, we've got, everything that happens from the music industry and those things, a lot of healthcare here in Nashville as well. And just a massive influx of population to the city too. So a lot of construction happening here as well.
And just to give our listeners in all parts of the world a kind of an overview of what construction is like in Nashville, what type of construction are we looking at?
Yeah, so we see things kind of across the board and across kind of all aspects of construction. So there's a lot of commercial, obviously, as companies continue to come to Nashville. So we see a lot of companies who are opening second headquarters or new headquarter offices here. And then along with that, the population that comes and the employees. So also a big increase in the amount of residential construction. I would say with a heavy emphasis really on multifamily. So we're seeing a lot of apartments, condos, high-rise condos, those kinds of projects.
Okay, well, let's dive into some of the big challenges, and many of them will be very common around the industry. Let's start with one of the big ones at the moment, which is certainly a global issue, labor shortages.
Like it is, I would say, throughout the U.S. and really around the world. We're faced with the same issues that most everybody is, and it's a struggle right now. I think a lot of it goes clear back to the recession in 2008. We had a lot of people who left the industry, and so we've got a really big void that obviously we need to all work together to try to fill. I don't think there's probably a silver bullet that addresses it. I think it's a lot of different areas, and some of them that you all address, how we make construction more inclusive and get more people into the industry, I think is one. I think there's obviously the technology play and how we can leverage technology to overcome some of it. But yeah, it continues to be a massive issue that we all try to work on and face.
And it seems to me we've sleepwalked really globally into this situation. It's similar in a way to kind of the truck drivers situation where, people have been doing these jobs often for years, sometimes decades they've been in the construction industry. And now, and perhaps exacerbated by COVID and other things that are going on, people are thinking, well, that's it. I am now going to retire. And we haven't ensured that pipeline of younger people coming into the industry has been full enough. I mean, how are you looking to address that and attract younger and, as you mentioned, more diverse people into the construction industry?
Yeah, I think that's the void. And it's twofold, right? It's one is how do we get the people into the industry? And then two, how do we transfer that knowledge from those latter generations to the new generation that's coming up? I think we have to look at it as we're competing for talent just like any other industry. And so we have to look to, what other industries have done and are doing. And unfortunately in construction, we tend to be a bit of a laggard when it comes to innovation and adoption and really change as a whole. So I think some of the stuff that we're looking at is we, technology is a huge place where if we don't have the right technologies and things and try to make things as comfortable as we can for the new generation, those are some areas that we can really focus on. I think, one of the biggest ones that we're seeing post-COVID is flexibility. A lot of industries are moving to remote work and flexible work hours and some of those things. And I think construction's been a little slow to come around to that, but I think it's something that we're starting to identify a bigger opportunity for. The other thing I think we'll start to see, Steve, is that we'll see the best and the brightest across geographies, right? So as we go more remote and we introduce cloud-based, softwares and technologies, it allows people to collaborate maybe without being in the same cities, the same countries. And so we're able to kind of get the best people from, all over, which I think will be a really big help to what we're doing.
Yeah. And I think technology can't be talked about enough in terms of the labor shortages for construction, because, and Pete and I were talking about this on a recent episode, that there will be people who want to get down and dirty on a site, they want a hammer or a power tool in their hand, they want to be doing that. But there are a huge group of people who won't want that, but are interested in technology. And for them, whether they're working in construction or they're working in healthcare or they're working in some sort of commerce, they will be interested in the technology. And I guess this is where a company like Stateside can really enthuse people that actually construction is not just about the physical side of things. It is very much about the technology and will be more so in the future.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think, it's interesting because, I actually have a construction management degree and I remember kind of coming up in that. And it was very much, there was this stigma that construction was exactly that. It's the guy with the shovel, with dirt up to his waist and, working in a ditch all day. And that's just not the reality, right? There's a lot of, office jobs and, project management, even at this point, is relatively hands off. So we have to market that, and we have to help the younger generations kind of see what construction really is and what it can be and where it's going. And so I think, obviously the technology aspect of it, I think there's a lot of other things that are coming around as well with, prefabrication and robotics and some of those things too, that will be interesting and are going to be, new jobs and something a little bit different from the traditional construction as everybody kind of knows it.
And are you guys kind of trying to enthuse those younger generations? Are you reaching out to schools and colleges and trying to get, young people really excited about the possibility of the construction industry, and particularly as a generation, the younger cohort are so interested in climate change and how sustainable cities are going to look, and construction is right there at the heart of that.
Yeah, without a doubt, we are. And that too, I would say, takes kind of two aspects. So one is encouraging the industry as a whole to do a better job of adopting technology. So we are doing a lot with that, where, we're encouraging companies that we work with to adopt more technology and to change a little bit of how they work and move ourselves away from those old traditional methods that we use. And then two is reaching out, exactly like you mentioned, to the universities. We have a really strong university program that we leverage, where we provide our software to university programs, allowing them to see what construction technology is, what it can do, and just kind of trying to make it as enticing as we can for the up and coming folks.
Because it's kind of that whole thing of, okay, you might say traditionally boys, but not always, girls too. They love, as kids, even as babies, as soon as they're able to do stuff, they're building things, they're putting the blocks on top, and enthusing the younger generation that, hey, that stuff you used to really love with, whether it was with building blocks, with Lego, whatever it may be, you can do that on a huge scale in construction.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing, I guess, if you really think about it, right? So we all as kids want to, we're playing with Tonka trucks and doing all those kinds of things. And then somewhere along the lines, for some reason, that loses its luster a little bit. So I think, anything that we can do as an industry to, leverage that and try to encourage people to come in, we need to do more of it.
It's certainly been the case that since this decade started, it's been one thing after another, hasn't it? With, with COVID, and then with inflation, the war in Ukraine, which is obviously affecting not only in inflation, but it's also affecting some supply issues there. There's the huge kind of enthusiasm that everybody had to build back better, or to really boost infrastructure that all the governments around the world were talking about as we came out of COVID. And of course, that then put even more pressure on materials, which then puts pressure on prices. And I mean, this, I guess, it speaks right to the heart of what StackCT does with the estimating software and being able to be smarter with working out your costs and keeping on top of your costs is absolutely key, isn't it?
It really is. And I think it's one of the biggest challenges that we kind of see as an industry. And it's one of the things that we spend probably the most amount of our time trying to help the industry overcome, which is how do we connect all the different parties that are involved in construction, right? So everything from, we have the building product manufacturers and suppliers that are creating the products. We have the general contractors who are running the projects alongside the architects and owners. We have the trade contractors who are putting things in place. And so I think one of the things that we've spent a lot of time on at Stack is trying to help everybody understand what's happening with material prices. Some of the things that we've been doing, we've actually incorporated B&I pricing into our products, which B&I, at least here in the States, is a pricing catalog that sort of gives people a general idea of what pricing should be depending on where you're at and where your project is for materials across the board. I think it's something like 20,000 plus products that we have in those catalogs. So I think there's a lot that we can do from that perspective and continue to do. The other thing is trying to figure out how we can better connect those building product manufacturers and distributors with the trade contractors so that they can, provide pricing quickly, that we can, make sure that we get materials where they need to be, as we understand where pipeline and backlog is. And so, definitely a big focus for us and something we're doing everything we can to try to help ease some of the supply chain issues that we have today, for sure.
And again, for kind of our international and global listeners, I mean, it's easy to think of the United States as this vast, resource-filled area, where everything is surely there for you. But I know, for example, the construction industry has been hampered sometimes by lumber not being able to be exported from Canada or not being able to get enough of it and things like that. So there is a reliance on the international trade of materials as well, even in a vast place like the US.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Without a doubt. It's, I would love to think that we just have all the resources that we need at hand all the time. And unfortunately, it's just not the case. And there is a really big dependence across the US and then internationally of making sure that we have product where it needs to be, when it needs to be there. You bet. The lumber shortage was one that, just had a massive impact. And like you said, is very dependent on what comes out of our neighbors to the north in Canada. We saw lumber prices absolutely skyrocket in an inability to get, the lumber, where we needed to get it, when we needed to get it. And, fortunately, some of that started to level back out, but we've seen similar things in steel and other products as well. So without a doubt, it's something that, I think we need to work across borders, and we've got to try to get figured out is just understanding where the supply or where the demand is, when it, when it's going to be, and try to figure out how we get, product where we need to get it, is a big deal.
And just talk us through how your software, your cloud-based systems help contractors to generate really accurate construction estimates every time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, historically, a lot of what's been done from an estimating perspective in construction, even with some of the largest contractors that, in the industry, is been pen and paper and, doing what people refer to as takeoffs, where, we actually remeasure the plans and get the information and understand what material we need, has been done by pen and paper. I would say, more commonly now is Microsoft Excel. We see a lot of Microsoft Excel as well in spreadsheets. But ultimately what we do a on-screen digital takeoff where any contractor can take off any trades. So whether it's cable runs for electrical or, counting outlets or taking off walls or getting volumes for concrete, they're able to easily do those measurements right within Stack. We're able to get them the quantities that they need so that they kind of understand what materials they're going to need for the project. And then with that tie-in of pricing, we're able to actually supply them real-time pricing, depending on their region or area. So they're able to really quickly quote and kind of understand, what the price is going to look like for a particular project. And then they can kind of finalize those estimates right within our platform. And they can turn those around to an architect or an owner relatively quickly, or to a GC for a trade contractor.
And really, this is the ideal time for these sort of focuses, because we've talked about restrictions on supply, we've talked about the cost of supply, but also the other thing that we talk a lot about on this podcast is sustainability. And those three things kind of converge in a way that you say, well, for cost reasons, for supply reasons, and for sustainability reasons, we don't want to be having too much material delivered on site, if things are just going to be cut off and wasted. We want to know, to as close as we possibly can, how much we need of this material, how much we're actually going to use. And that's so important now for all three of those reasons.
It really is. I mean, I think, when you look at the overall numbers of construction waste, right, just wasted material from a construction project, or wasted man hours of not having the right labor on site when it needs to be there. It's an area that we can, I think, easily fix, or not easily, but we can at least make really good headway with some of the technologies like Stack or any of the others. I think the better job that we do planning projects in advance and understanding, the material, the timeline, the labor that's going to be required for it, will make a really big difference there. And, I think as we look at sustainability, obviously the less waste that we have, the better. And the more economical we can make these projects, the more that can be invested back into to things like net zero and some of those areas as well.
And what would be considered traditional construction really has got to look at this, because we've done, and I know you mentioned kind of that modular construction thing, which is really kind of building. We did an episode recently on that as well, where things are very efficient. The stuff is delivered to the factory, it's cut to the right length, they are able to just put it together. And, we need that on sites as well, because otherwise it makes traditional construction less competitive with modular. And there's all those extra costs of the clear up, if you've got a load of stuff you've got to get rid of, there's all of that going on at the same time. And there is a strong business case for getting all this really, really sorted now.
There really is. And it's phenomenal to me if you look back at prefabrication and the history of it. I mean, it goes back such a long way. In some cases, we've done a decent job with it. In a lot of cases, there's a massive room for improvement with it. So I think, we continue to see an increase in prefab on job sites. I think it's one of those things that we tend to lag in a lot of ways in construction. I think that just getting people's heads around the idea of what prefabrication really can do, what the long-term cost savings is of it. It'll take some investment, I think, up front in a lot of ways. And I think maybe some of that is what's holding up, some stakeholders from doing it. But I really do. I think we're going to start to see more and more prefabrication. And I think it's going to make a massive difference in how we kind of operate. I think exactly to what you said too, to kind of start us off, is how dramatically that's going to change construction and the jobs that are out there, right? So, very much this starts to become more logistics play and technology and routing of materials and things where they need to be, as opposed to the traditional kind of on-site construction that we're all so used to.
And on the sort of sustainability piece, I think people are on kind of a spectrum in a way. There are those who purely see it in terms of, well, this makes economic sense. We have to look at this for the reasons that we've just discussed. And there are those at the other end who want to do it for the right reasons, to protect the planet, to make sure that resources are available for generations to come. And then there are those, who are kind of along that line somewhere.
Yeah. Well, my immediate thought when you say it is what I think is beautiful about it in the long term is that it really covers all aspects of it, right? As we make it more economical, and we can do more of it, it has a direct impact for sure on the amount of waste and how environmentally friendly a lot of our construction projects can be. I think today we probably see the most emphasis from more of how environmentally friendly we can be to some regard. I think we are still struggling a little bit to fully understand as an industry the true economic value. And I think in some cases, we're seeing some of prefabrication can, at least in the early days, maybe have a higher initial cost. But I think as we see more of it, those costs, like anything else, will start to come down. And I think as we do, we'll just see more and more prefab. And again, I think it'll impact both sides of that. I think ultimately we can make things more economic at the same time that we're making them more energy efficient and reducing waste on job sites as well. So to me, it's a win-win across the board.
Okay, now, what's the number one way, would you say, to lose and to make money on a construction project in your experience?
I think, especially when it comes to our trade contractors and some of those folks, I think, or if you just look at the entire construction team, I think one of the biggest things that we're seeing is construction teams coming together earlier in the process. I think we've historically been pretty siloed as an industry. Owners, architects work together to create plans, and then, those GCs get brought in, and then, ultimately the trade contractors. I think that the earlier we can start to form those project teams, get everybody on the same page, the more time, almost like anything, we can spend up front on the overall project strategy. I think ultimately the better project we have at the end. So, I think getting all those team members together early, we can start to value engineer. We can start to understand, ways that we might be able to save money, ways that we might be able to use new technologies or prefabrication or all these different things that if we wait too long in the process, all of a sudden we don't have an opportunity for. So, I think that would be the biggest thing for me, is just trying to see how we can break down some of those silos that we've always seen between different stakeholders of construction projects.
Well, collaboration has always got to be a good thing, hasn't it? I mean, not so you get to the point of a committee trying to work out how things are done, but just collaborating is great. And actually, wasn't a topic I was necessarily going to discuss with you, but and obviously, I'm not asking you to give an expert opinion on this, but just a snapshot. I mean, something else we talk about a lot on Constructive Voices is mental health. And I think collaboration in an industry where, as you say, people are often working in silos, and sometimes very much, it's kind of one person doing their job. They turn up, they do their thing on site, and they go, which isn't necessarily conducive to great mental health. How is your reading of kind of the mental health of the construction industry?
Steve, it's always been something that's been really close to me, and kind of a personal passion is to try to figure out how we can kind of help with that. So anybody who's familiar with mental health in our industry knows that our numbers tend to be fairly staggering. We always tend to rank to the top of industries with mental health issues and in cases of suicide and things like that. And I think some of it just plays into the overall pressure that is construction and the environment that we work in. It's a very, very tough work environment in a lot of cases. There's a lot of tight timelines and difficult things that we have to do, and I think some of that plays into it. I think it's one that we continue to see, here in the States and here in Nashville. I will say some of the best things that I've seen is that it really seems that a lot of industry leaders and thought leaders are really more willing to open up and talk about it than they have been in the past. And I think even in the last 6 months, the last couple of years, I've really seen a turn in that. And I think that's part of it is, one, we just have to be willing to have that conversation. And in an industry that's historically a relatively male-dominated industry, where people are expected to be kind of like tough and strong in those things, I think it's one that that if we can kind of lower our own barriers and be able to kind of start to talk about those things is going to be really critical. I think the second is trying to understand some of the aspects that may drive mental health issues within the industry. And I do think that the more comfortable that we can make our work environments, I think the more we can allow people to be home and close to their families and doing the things that they want and need to do, whether that's through technology or prefabrication or, all the different aspects that come into that. I think those are ways that we can all at least start to have those conversations and see what we can start to do just to make construction a better industry for everybody and hopefully try to reduce some of those rates.
Fantastic. Looking back at technology as we draw to a close, and both from Stack's point of view, but also the wider impact of technology in the construction industry, I want you to kind of do a bit of future gazing here and just kind of imagine where you see things going and how technology will change the industry in the coming years.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very broad kind of a topic, I suppose, but yeah, I think, it's a super exciting time to be in construction, right? There's so many things that are happening. I think we really have some young leaders who are coming up in the industry who are really pushing the evolution of technology, what we do, who are really starting to understand the impact that it can have. And so, I think for some smaller contractors, it'll be the most basic of basic kinds of things of just getting on board with your estimating softwares and those kinds of things. At a bigger scale, I think we're seeing so many great things from artificial intelligence and what that can do, and how we can start to design and see buildings in 3D, way ahead of actual construction. So I think we'll start to see more and more visualization. I think we'll start to see a lot of robotics are coming on really big. I know you guys did a great episode on robotics here not too long ago. We're starting to see some of that, and not necessarily in just replacing jobs or anything like that, but helping to supplement, and also some of those more difficult jobs or where safety becomes an issue. I think we'll start to see robotics play a big part there, and then I think prefabrication and sustainability. We've talked a lot about it, and it's obviously a big topic within the industry. But I think we're going to see a lot more prefabrication coming up. And I think we'll see a lot more offsite construction. And I think all the benefits that come along with that, both from an economic standpoint and from a sustainability standpoint, if we can kind of eliminate some of that waste, if we can start to build things faster offsite, if we can get materials where they need to be faster, I think that's all going to play a big factor in what we do as an industry for sure.
See, listeners to this need to be telling their kids just how exciting construction is now and in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. We need to maintain that feeling, right? The whole thing that we talked about earlier of, kids get super excited about construction when they're young and it seems to wane as they get older, and we need to just maintain that same passion and excitement that they have as kids and see if we can get more people out on job sites and in the industry and get them excited about it.
Yeah, we need to tell them they're the superheroes of the future, because that is what construction does, is building the cities and building the sustainability that we need for generations to come.
Without a doubt, they really are. We wouldn't have anything that we have without construction, and we need to get more people passionate about it for sure.
This is Constructive Voices.
So there you go, Pete. That's Aaron Henderson from Stack CT. Some interesting insights there. And what I found particularly interesting was, that whole piece about resources. And, as I said to Aaron in the interview, you think of the United States as being this vast resource center where every single material you might need would be available. That's not the case. They're still importing a lot of things. They're reliant on Canada for lumber and various other places for other materials. And so they are as impacted by the rise in the cost of commodities as everybody else has been.
There's a saying in Ireland, the grass is always greener on the other side. And you always seem to think that, other areas may not be having the challenges that we would be having in our region in Europe and in our own countries and our own sort of close environment. But it was interesting to hear that the challenges are still very similar in terms of there's a massive shortage in labour. Without the shadow of a doubt, material issues that we're experiencing, they are experiencing as well. So I think it's fair to say that these issues, in particular the material issues, are global. All the more reason for us within the industry to try and find ways of resolving these issues or getting over these challenges. We've got a lot of work still to do. We've got, a lot of demand for work to be done, but we definitely are in turbulent times when it comes to cost of construction. Like, there's just no doubt about it. I'm experiencing it myself on projects day to day. I have no choice but to break bad news to clients that the cost of the materials from the quotation date to when we've actually had to buy them has changed, and there's going to be an uplift in cost or a variation in the cost. So it was good to get that insight there today from Aaron.
Certainly tough times, Pete, across, all industries and all households as well at the moment. The other thing, of course, we talked about, which is a global challenge, is the labour shortage and getting people into the industry. And that whole thing about enthusing people while they're young, getting kids interested and getting them saying, that's what I want to do as a career.
Let's start, doing more for that. I really do think that we need to be, as an industry, we need to be, more in tune with that, and we need to maybe be clever and put structures in place so that the transition from school and maybe college and then into construction is an easier journey than what it is at the moment. And I think, there has to be a change in attitude as well. Construction sites are not the dangerous, hard life that they used to be. They have changed. Modular build, as you discussed with Aaron there as well, is it going to be a huge development over there? It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that workshop environment is a completely different environment to the on-site old school traditional way of construction. So it's going to open up a lot more doors to a lot more people, and it also makes being a part of the construction industry more attractive, and it's allowing a life in construction be an easier life than it was previously, on your body and on everything that you do. So look, I think some great stuff discussed there. Really enjoyed the insight into the life across the pond, as they say, and how things are going in that area. So it's clear to see that, the construction challenges are global. The construction challenges hold no boundaries, and they certainly don't discriminate in any way. They will be there for whoever you are in whatever region.
Well, as we always say, the conversation is building here on Constructive Voices. And another interesting episode today, but we've got some amazing episodes on the way. So I would urge everyone to make sure you're checking your social media on the Constructive Voices accounts.
We really do. We've got some great guests coming on. We've got some really good topics to be discussed. And as always, we will ask the hard questions and we will seek to try and get the good answers. So really looking forward to hearing those and doing the talk with you as always, Steve.
Absolutely. Always good. I'll let you get back to your work there in the gym, and we'll talk again soon.
Cheers, Steve. Chat to you soon.
And that's all for this episode of Constructive Voices. Please take a moment to share it with others who may find it interesting. Follow or subscribe to get the latest episodes automatically on your favourite podcast app, and rate and review the podcast if you can. You can also listen to the latest episode by saying, Alexa, play Constructive Voices podcast.
Here's Constructive Voices. Here's the latest episode.
And on our website, where there's lots more information too. That's constructive-voices.com. Don't forget the dash. Until next time, thanks for listening. You're really helping us build something.